Star Wars has returned to the big screen with The Mandalorian and Grogu. But does this film hold up when compared to the rest of the franchise? Let's find out by ranking every single Star Wars movie and show. I should specify though that I'm only doing the films and shows in the current Star Wars canon, and that's the 13 movies and 15 shows you see here on this tier list. But with all that said, let's begin with this franchise started.
Again, it's like poetry, so if they rhyme.
Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope. Despite being the oldest film, A New Hope still holds up exceptionally well. Even in this first movie, George Lucas was able to create an entire universe. The opening title crawl is not only iconic, but it's genius storytelling because it introduces us to this world, the conflict, and its history. Every place the main characters go to has its own identity, and these sets are all perfectly detailed and tell their own stories. Mos Eisley is a hive of scum and villainy, and so it's appropriately dingy, gross, and kinda miserable looking. The Death Star is an evil naval facility, so it's clean, monochromatic, and has all those bright lights in all the schools that are making the kids depressed. These places aren't just random, they're filled to the brim with identity, and even the background characters add to the world building as well. Whether it's random droids inside the Jawa sandcrawler, or nameless heroes on the rebel base, or this freak at the bar.
I like chocolate milk.
But this main cast of characters are the stars of the show, and these are some of the greatest characters in all of film. I mean, Darth Vader. Frickin' Darth Vader. We've all seen Darth Vader a million times, but can we all just stop to appreciate what a great villain this is? Fantastic design, scary presence. Voiced by James Earl Jones, he has it all. In this first film, we don't really learn much about Vader, but he works even as just a scary presence. And he also has some killer lines.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
Alec Guinness as Ben Kenobi is brilliant. He truly captured this wise old Jedi Knight who's thrown into one last adventure, and those little looks that Guinness gives says a lot without him having to say anything. Side characters like R2-D2, C-3PO, and Chewbacca are also great here, even if they don't get a ton of focus. And then there's the main trio of characters who will follow throughout the trilogy: Luke Skywalker, Princess Leia Organa, and Han Solo. I, like I'm sure everyone else watching this video, adore these three characters. Leia is a strong leader of the Rebel Alliance. The scenes of her taking charge of the situation leading Han and Luke says a lot about her, and Carrie Fisher is this character, even if she has a random British accent in one scene.
I should have expected to find you holding Vader's leash. I recognized your foul stench when I was brought on board.
And both Luke and Han go on simple but effective hero's journey arcs. Han started out as a scumbag smuggler who shoots first, but he grows to care about his friends and shows up during the Battle of Yavin, becoming a hero and earning a medal. Chewie was there too, but yeah, sure, just give Han the medal. That's fine. And Luke was a whiny kid who wanted to leave his homeworld for a life of adventure. He gets his wish, is introduced to Obi-Wan Kenobi in the Force, realizes the universe is a lot bigger than himself, fights for the rebellion, blows up the Death Star, and becomes a hero who gets a singular coolest jacket in history of Star Wars. Seriously, this thing rocks. The original Star Wars is a simple movie, and everything about it works except for some of the special edition inclusions. The action, the practical effects, the costumes, John Williams' score, everything about this film is perfect. It's the foundation for one of the biggest film franchises of all time, and for a good reason. It's a perfect movie, and it's going in S tier.
Daddy, chill.
What the hell is even that?
Star Wars Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back. This is often considered to be one of the greatest sequels of all time, and even superior to the original Star Wars. And while I think the original Star Wars is ever so slightly better than this movie, it can't be understated how Empire succeeds at being a sequel in every aspect. It follows up the story in a satisfying way, it fleshes out the universe more, and it's still so damn entertaining. Let's talk about the entertainment value first, because that is the most exciting. This is the most action-packed film of the original trilogy, and each sequence is thrilling in its own way. The Battle of Hoth is this huge-scale siege that features impressive practical and special effects. Han's chase through the meteor field is also exciting, especially with the reveal that they were hiding inside of Meg.
How come I never get any lines in these things?
Shut up, Meg.
Or I mean, they were inside this worm thing. And then there's of course the single greatest fight in all of Star Wars. And you know exactly what I'm talking about. Yoda versus R2-D2, baby, woo!
R2!
Nah, but seriously, the Luke versus Vader fight is one for the ages. The choreography is stellar, it's visually creative, and it's narratively very important. Which, speaking of, it's about time we talk about this narrative. The best part of Empire's story is how it raises the stakes when compared to the original. The Rebel Alliance is scattered across the galaxy and our main heroes are on their own. There's this desperate race to stay out of the Empire's clutches that fails. The movie has the balls to make the heroes lose, which so few movies choose to do anymore. And this huge story decision impacts the character arcs. Han and Leia finally get to their blossoming romance. They finally admit their feelings for one another, even if Leia does some freaky stuff.
Hey, Italian man. Huh?
Han gets frozen to carbonite, making this a tragic romance story. Luke is still that plucky pilot who thinks he's gonna train to be a Jedi, then go off and fight Vader and save his friends. But then he learns there are levels to this.
It was at this moment he knew.
And he also learns that Vader is his father. Still one of the biggest twists of all time and thematically very important. The whole film series, at least the main 6, carry themes of the next generation fixing the mistakes of the previous one. And the main villain, being the main hero's father, is an extension of that. And so Luke losing here and finding out the truth is perfect for continuing his story in the next installment. Also, the world building in The Empire Strikes Back is truly excellent. We get to see a bunch of new worlds like Hoth, Dagobah, and Bespin, and we get to see a bunch of cool new aliens too, like Wampas, Tauntauns, Minox, and whoever the hell Lobot is. And a bunch of important Star Wars characters are introduced here. The Emperor shows up for a brief scene, then there's Boba Fett, the coolest guy in the galaxy. People say he did nothing in the original trilogy, but he found Han Solo and he aura farmed a lot. That's certainly something. Lando Calrissian is awesome. He has a solid arc of growing a spine, and Billy D. Williams has so much charm and charisma, it's crazy.
Hello, what have we here?
Then of course, there's Jedi Master Yoda, a fan favorite character for a reason. He's both an emotionally impactful character with how he views the Force and tries to train Luke, but he's also a hilarious character, with various funny moments inside and outside the movie. Really, what else is there to say about The Empire Strikes Back? It's an endlessly watchable and engaging Star Wars film and easily one of the best of the saga. And it's going directly in S tier. Star Wars Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. This is considered to be the worst of the trilogy, and while it is, I don't think it's nearly as bad as people have said in the past. There are 3 big criticisms people levy against this movie. The pacing is bad, the Ewoks are bad, and Death Star 2 is bad. And out of those 3 complaints, I only think one of them is truly valid. The pacing of Return of the Jedi is kinda bad. The first act? Great. The second act? Also great. But it's that middle second act that meanders a lot, becomes really slow, and is bogged down by a lot of story beats that it has to deal with. But the Ewoks do not suck. They are wonderful little murder pillow pets, and they fit perfectly in Star Wars despite what other people might say. They make sense as part of the Rebel Alliance. I mean, they nearly roasted Han, surely they can do some damage against some stormtroopers. And then there's the Death Star 2. People think it's really dumb to have a second Death Star. I never understood why it would be dumb. They would have fixed the issue with the original Death Star, and the Empire's shield generator plan nearly worked. Also, we all know why Palpatine really wanted 2 Death Stars.
And I had a dream. A crazy dream. To build a gigantic boob in outer space.
That's gonna be the only time I mention Star Kid's Annie in this video, but you should check it out if you haven't. It's hilarious. While the second act of this movie is kind of a mess and a bit of a slog to get through, the other 2 acts are astounding. The beginning bit at Jabba's palace is peak Star Wars. There are so many cool creature designs and costumes and puppetry here. Jabba himself is a feat of engineering. They truly brought this nasty, vile creature to life and made him an exceptionally memorable villain. And the action bits here are exciting too, like when Luke fights the Rancor, or the entire sail barge fight, which makes for an exceptionally fun Lego level. The third act is, of course, also brilliant. The Battle of Endor is one of the finest battles in all of cinema. The shootout on the forest moon with Han, Leia, Chewie, and the droids has a lot of Ewok fun and dire stakes. The space battle features some impressive effects, and I love that the heroes who blew up the second Death Star were Lando, Nine Nub, and Wedge Antilles. Wedge especially getting the recognition he deserves is fantastic because he's a goated character. But now let's talk about everything with Luke, Vader, and Palpatine. This is in some ways the true Battle of Endor. The single thing that the whole 6-movie saga is leading towards. This is not only a great ending to the film, it's not only a great ending to this trilogy, it's not only a great ending to this saga, it's a great ending to Star Wars as a whole. After Luke defeats Vader but spares him, declaring himself to be a Jedi like his father before him, Vader turns on the Emperor and throws his wrinkly ass down a hole. Luke throwing down his weapon because he's a Jedi who still cares for his father is one of the reasons he is one of the greatest heroes in cinema. Throughout the film, Luke was filled with conflict in what he was gonna do with Vader. Yoda and Obi-Wan wanted him to kill Vader, to sever that attachment because they're still operating on the old Jedi ways. But Luke ignores that. His attachment to his father is what proves himself to be a Jedi. And this action inspires Anakin Skywalker to return, to defeat the Emperor, to bring balance to the Force. And balance, by the way, just means to destroy the Sith. It doesn't mean kill all the Jedi and all the Sith until they're equal. Vader killing all the Jedi was still really wrong. The Sith themselves were the imbalance, and getting rid of them was what brought balance. This scene really does bring the whole saga home for me, and Luke seeing his old masters at the end when the Rebel Alliance is celebrating always makes me a little misty-eyed. Both because it's a beautiful ending to one of my favorite stories in cinema, and also because I know how badly Disney butchers it later. Return of the Jedi is not a perfect movie, but it is the perfect ending, and it's always one I enjoy going back to rewatch. It's going in A tier.
What the f***, Darth Maul?
Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. Oh boy, y'all are not ready for what I have to say about this. This is famously one of the most hated movies of all time, and certainly one of the most hated in the entire Star Wars franchise. But The Phantom Menace is my personal favorite Star Wars film. Every single criticism I've heard about this movie over the years means absolutely nothing. Each critique is actually a positive. Jar Jar sucks. No, he's incredibly endearing and I love that man. The politics are boring. No. They're important for the world building and explain how Emperor Palpatine came to power. The characters are wooden and have no depth. The characters perfectly serve the story. But before we get into all that, let's first discuss what everyone agrees is actually great about this movie. Darth Maul. Despite having like 4 lines in the movie, he won everyone over from his sheer aura, the design, the lightsaber, the fighting style. Everything about this guy in The Phantom Menace is absolutely insane, and he's also an important part of the story which I mentioned people have torn to shreds. The political story makes sense and lends itself to a fun galaxy-wide adventure. From Naboo to Tatooine to Coruscant to back to Naboo again. The movie isn't the most well-paced, especially towards the middle section, but everything on some level is engaging and entertaining, and offers something new from the galaxy. The story also makes it possible for the film to have well-done action and well-done characters. While there isn't really a central character of this Star Wars film, which is unique for the series, I think the ensemble are all compelling in their own way. Qui-Gon Jinn is a very interesting Jedi character. His disagreements with the Jedi Council and standard Jedi dealings show how the current system may be flawed and that he may be a better example of a true Jedi than them. And his interactions with Obi-Wan are very special. It's very cool meeting the person who shaped the hero that we all know and love. And their final scene together when Qui-Gon dies is very well executed, because it's a time that Liam Neeson and Ewan McGregor showed the emotion that the Jedi aren't supposed to have. They're going against the Jedi teaching and expressing feelings because of their attachments. That's where the genius of these two characters comes in. This is a solid introduction for Padme. We see where her strong ideals come from. Young Anakin Skywalker is of course very important here, and he has a solid story of accepting a new life away from Tatooine. That scene of him leaving his mother is always super powerful. And this may be a hot take, but I think Jake Lloyd is honestly very endearing in this role, and some of his line delivery is so memorable.
Are you an angel?
The action in The Phantom Menace is also so damn entertaining. You of course have the Gungan battle, that's a ton of fun, a super exciting pod race, and the aerial battle over Naboo. But it's really Duel of the Fates that is the shining scene of the film, both in terms of entertainment and narratively. The reason the fight works so well, besides the way it was filmed and the expert choreography, is the inner story that's happening here. Palpatine sent Darth Maul to specifically kill Qui-Gon, because he knew that if Qui-Gon trained Anakin, trained the Chosen One, it would completely foil his plans. So Darth Maul is fighting his hardest to please his master and to not get discarded, while Qui-Gon is fighting hard for the fate of Anakin Skywalker, because he knows he's the only one who could properly train him. It's a fascinating dynamic. And yes, the fight itself is freaking insane. But the last thing we had to talk about in The Phantom Menace, and the reason why it's my favorite Star Wars movie, the Glup Shittos. If you don't know what a Glup Shitto is, it's basically those random side characters in Star Wars that only big fans know the names of. And some of the best Glup Shittos come from this movie. Boss Nass, Watto, Sebulba, Ben Quadraneros, and the main man himself, Jar Jar Binks. I have such a deep love for Glup Shitto characters, and The Phantom Menace gave us so much. And really, the film as a whole has the aura of a Glup Shitto. I think maybe half of all Star Wars memes come from this one singular film, and like every 5 seconds there's a brand new meme.
The negotiations were short.
The ability to speak does not make you intelligent. There's always a bigger fish.
This is getting out of hand. Now there are 2 of them.
A surprise, to be sure, but a welcome one.
I love Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, so much. It is my favorite Star Wars film. I understand its flaws, its strengths, its everything. But still, I love this movie so much, I can't possibly put it in the standard ranking system. So it has to go in its own tier away from everything else.
Hi, yeah, I'm recording this while on vacation, so
It sounds a bit weird, but I just want to clarify and say that The Phantom Menace is not necessarily better than any Star Wars project. I'm just saying that it's so funny to me and so stupid. It's basically not part of the ranking because it's its own separate thing. S tier is very much still the highest tier in this video.
Shrek is love, I say. Shrek is life.
Star Wars Episode 2 Attack of the Clones. This is the one prequel movie I don't love. A lot of it is fine, and there are some good memes from the movie, but when people talk about huge criticisms toward the prequels, I feel like most of them apply to Attack of the Clones. The story and overall pacing of the film before the third act can be pretty iffy at times. Obi-Wan investigates a bounty hunter who tried to kill Padme, finding him, a mysterious clone army, and a droid factory on Geonosis, and that's awesome. The Obi-Wan Kenobi side of this film is genuinely a lot of fun, compelling, and full of cool characters and locations, namely Kamino and Dex's diner with the absolute GOAT, Dexter Jetster. Look at this absolute unit. You may not like it, but this is what peak male performance looks like. But the Anakin stuff in Attack of the Clones is famously not that good. The romance between Anakin and Padme is important to Star Wars, and important for his turn to the dark side, but their scenes together are just kinda awkward and hilarious, and ultimately feel a lot slower than the Obi-Wan stuff. Like one moment you're watching Obi-Wan Kenobi chase Jango Fett through an asteroid field, where you hear the coolest sound humanity has ever created, and the next moment, Anakin is talking about sand and how it's coarse, rough, irritating, and it gets everywhere. Their romance is just kinda odd. Like, you would think that Anakin killing an entire tribe of sand people would be a deal breaker for Padme, but she really doesn't care at all. It's kinda strange. The one thing I will defend about this plotline is Hayden Christensen's performance. He had an incredibly difficult task in these two Star Wars films. He had to be the middle ground between young Anakin and Darth Vader, while also portraying this young man who's struggling to control his feelings and live up to the Jedi Order standards that are impossible for someone who hasn't been raised that way since birth. And his line delivery is spot on. He talks in the very same way as Darth Vader, which, speaking of Sith Lords, Count Dooku is introduced here and he's one of my favorite Star Wars villains.
I support democracy. Count Dooku.
This former Jedi who became disgusted by what the Republic would become makes for a very interesting villain. He didn't turn to the dark side for power or for personal reasons. He genuinely believes it's the pragmatic solution for the galaxy's problems. He believes fully in this cause. And Christopher Lee gives a completely commanding performance here, as he does in everything he's in. But I think it's time we talk about the crowning jewel of Attack of the Clones. And that, of course, is the Battle of Geonosis. Oh my goodness, this is a spectacular action set piece and one of the finest of the entire saga. There is so much happening and so much to appreciate. The beginning battle with the creatures is fun and unique. All the Jedi dueling together in the arena is really exciting, and as a kid, seeing this many Jedi on screen together was just mind-blowing. Mace Windu versus Jango Fett was a cool fight. It was almost as cool as Jango Fett versus Coleman Trebor. And Yoda coming in with the Republic Army is an incredibly hype moment. The only downside is the lightsaber fight at the end of it. The Dooku fights are kinda lame. They're all too short. I don't like how it's fragmented into Dooku versus Obi-Wan, and then Anakin, and then Yoda. And this one section of the Dooku versus Anakin fight is horrible. Just a terrible idea all around. But Yoda is still pretty boss here. I know there's a bunch of boomers who say that Yoda shouldn't have a lightsaber, but that's such a horrible take. He's a Jedi. Of course he has a lightsaber. And the CGI for him and his fighting style holds up very well. While I think Attack of the Clones is the worst of the first 6 Star Wars films, it's still an incredibly good time. And it also introduced one of my all-time favorite characters, Kit Fisto. Just look at that smile. Wow, he's gonna live forever. Attack of the Clones is going in B tier.
Hello there.
Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. This is probably the most beloved Star Wars film. I think at this point most people would say this is their favorite one, and while it's not my personal favorite, I still think it's a pretty darn good movie. The best thing this film does is deliver the story of how Anakin turned to the dark side. It's incredibly devastating watching this hero, the chosen one, being manipulated into turning to evil. Palpatine manipulates Anakin through his fears, through his attachments, and through his frustrations with the Jedi Order. Everything in the first hour or half or so of this movie is aimed at explaining how Anakin's turn makes sense. Because of the Jedi's dogmatic anti-attachment sentiments, Anakin forms his desperation around keeping Padme safe, which leads him down this path. And how his turn affects characters like Padme and Obi-Wan does a spectacular job at showcasing the sadness of this story. It's also sad that there's a reason fans call his lightsaber the Youngling Slayer 9000.
Master Skywalker, there are too many of them. What are we going to do?
Yeah, Order 66 always hits like a frickin' truck. Just the sad faces of the Jedi and John Williams' music, it's a perfect scene. And Hayden Christensen's performance is even better here than it was in Attack of the Clones. I mean, that one scene on Mustafar where he reflects on all the killing he's done in the past 48 hours is truly exceptional. And part of what makes Anakin's turn to Vader so compelling is this movie's antagonist, Palpatine. This is the best Emperor Palpatine has ever been in a movie. There is so much evil energy leaking out of him in every single scene. That sounds wrong. But the scenes of him manipulating Anakin, or giving huge monologues, or doing this, only work because of Ian McDiarmid's performance and this huge character he's crafted. Revenge of the Sith is also filled with loads and loads of action. In fact, I think it's the Star Wars film with the single most lightsaber duels. There's 5 in total of varying quality, so let's break them all down. The first fight in the Invisible Hand between Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Dooku is pretty solid, and I think this rematch is much better than the predecessor. It flows a lot better, the choreography is stronger, and it has the most effective disarm I've ever seen. Or should I say, dishand. The Obi-Wan versus General Grievous fight starts out pretty cool. I mean, General Grievous wielding 4 lightsabers will never not be cool. But the fight ended very quickly, is filled with a ton of awkward close-ups, and is overall pretty disappointing. The Palpatine's arrest fight is completely awful. Because for one, the homie Kit Fisto died. Rest in peace, King. May you smile brighter at the pearly gates. But in all seriousness, the fight is choppily edited, has embarrassing choreography, and a bunch of funny close-ups of Ian McDiarmid making funny faces. Everyone knows this fight was sabotaged by George Lucas wanting to show Ian McDiarmid's face, and, well, he definitely showed some faces. But at least this scene ends with Yoda vs. Palpatine is a fairly good fight. It's energetic, it takes place in a unique environment, and while it's rather short, the Force battle at the end was pretty cool. But then we have the final fight with Anakin and Obi-Wan. The choreography is stellar, the progression is crazy, and the ending is emotional and has worlds of impact. There's a lot to be said about Revenge of the Sith, and I'm pretty sure you all know how good this movie is. Despite some wonky scenes, some poor pacing in the middle, and some iffy lightsaber duels, this is a good Star Wars movie. So Revenge of the Sith is going in A tier. Star Wars: The Clone Wars, the movie. If they say it's a movie. Okay, I think we all know that this is just the first arc of the Clone Wars edited into a full-length feature film. And because of that fact, it feels incredibly disjointed. You can very clearly tell when each episode is supposed to end, and when the next one begins. Because it's a bunch of different adventures rolled up into one. And these adventures aren't even all that impressive compared to other Clone Wars arcs. The animation is also kinda rough. That's expected because this is the beginning of the Clone Wars style. Also, there's a lot of reused models. Like in Jabba's palace, you can see Obi-Wan Kenobi with an alien head. Ahsoka makes her introduction here, but she is very annoying and doesn't get the benefit of improving over time since this is a singular film. The characterization for most of the main cast is solid, so that's a plus. The action is perfectly serviceable, but nothing crazy. And yeah, I don't really have much to say about the Clone Wars movie. It's one of the worst Star Wars films, and it's very much forgettable. So it's going in D tier.
You're nothing but a wire-back silver number crunching clanker!
Star Wars: The Clone Wars. Man, if you were a kid when this show was first airing, you had the best childhood you could possibly hope for. For a lot of people, myself included, this is peak Star Wars. Maybe the best part about it is how it ties into the prequel trilogy and improves the storytelling. It makes Anakin's turn more believable. As Ahsoka leaving the Order makes Anakin doubt the Jedi more. It also makes his reaction to Mace Windu not making him a master make more sense, because we see how this guy is essentially the strongest Jedi in existence and a frickin' war hero. Or a war criminal, if you've seen those Clone Wars war crimes compilation videos.
You're a Jedi. You're no
Ahsoka Tano becomes a fan favorite character here, and despite being annoyingly everywhere nowadays, she was the heart and soul of this series. We see her grow and change over the seasons from a snippy child to a much wiser young adult. And the other standout characters are the clone troopers. I mean Captain Rex, Five, Echo, Cody, Heavy, etc, etc. All the clones are unique and have distinct personalities, and everyone who has seen this show has their own favorite clone, minus Five, so yeah.
The nightmares. Finally over.
with Ahsoka and Captain Rex as basically the two lead characters of the show, making them the center of the final arc of the series is genius. Seeing Order 66 from their perspective hits so damn hard, especially when Rex sheds a tear over his brothers. Damn. The emotional intensity of the Clone Wars cannot be understated. While not every Clone Wars arc is top tier, many of them are some of the best Star Wars content of all time. Darth Maul's return, the Siege of Mandalore, the Ahsoka conspiracy, the Bounty Hunter arc, the Darkness of Umbara, and on and on and on. And even the lesser arcs are still super entertaining in their own right. I know people hate on the droid mission arc, but I don't care, I kinda love it. The last thing I'll say about the Clone Wars is that it is a masterclass in propaganda. This show created the term clanker, which is used everywhere. I've been calling droids clankers since I was a child, and seeing beloved clones being gunned down every Friday night on Cartoon Network absolutely solidified the hate. I wish I could talk about the Clone Wars forever, and maybe someday I'll make a separate video where I rank each episode, but for the sake of time, I just have to throw Clone Wars in S tier and move on.
I'm Jake Paul from Bizarre Var, and you're watching Disney Channel.
Star Wars Rebels. This is a series that is hit or miss in the Star Wars fandom. Some absolutely hate it, and others love it, and I'm for sure in the love it camp. Rebels is incredible. The best thing about it is the characters, the family at the center of this story. Kanan, Hera, Chopper, Zeb, Sabine, and Ezra. These characters are all incredibly well written, each member is given their own stories throughout the series, and they have their own little arc that is very familial. Hera and Kanan as the mom and dad of this group, bringing up the rest of them, is incredibly fulfilling. By the end, Zeb, Sabine, and Ezra are leading their own missions and becoming leaders in this rebellion, and that relationship is best represented with Kanan and Ezra. Kanan Jarrus is my all-time favorite Star Wars character. He represents what a true Jedi is supposed to be. He maxed out his Lego stud bar. He believes in the living Force, but he doesn't follow the dogmatic ways of the prequel Jedi. He doesn't train Ezra as purely a soldier or a warrior, even though they're fighting a war. He trains him as a Jedi with a focus on the Force, and that's reflected in the second half of the series not having very many lightsaber battles. And Kanan has fantastic personal stories, like learning to see through the Force after he was blinded, or learning to understand his greater purpose in the story. And he easily has the saddest death in all of Star Wars. I mean, his sight coming back to see Hera one more time always makes me bawl. I could say so much more about Star Wars Rebels. The Vader and Ahsoka fight is one of the best fights in Star Wars. The Inquisitors are cool new enemies for this time period. Maul's storyline in the show is equal parts sad and exciting. It's incredible seeing the true beginning of the rebellion, and Vader drops one of the coolest lines in all of Star Wars.
I don't fear you.
Then you will die braver than most.
The only bad things about this show is that there are some filler episodes, and some characters do look odd in Rebels animation. But overall, this is one of my absolute favorite corners of the Star Wars universe. It's a bit too flawed for S tier, so I'll put it in A tier. Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens. This is the start of the most hated film trilogy of all time, and this first movie is... it's okay. It's not as bad as the next two, but it's also not particularly great either. I would best describe The Force Awakens as original trilogy slop. At the time that this movie was being made, the prequel hate was at an all-time high, and so they wanted to make this film as close to the original trilogy as physically possible, which only makes this film so much worse. Because not only is the story of The Force Awakens mostly a rehash of A New Hope, with a droid carrying important information, our main hero being from a desert planet, the main character being taken to the Rebel Alliance by a famous smuggler, the film's old mentor character dying, the main villain having a connection to said mentor character, and then them having to blow up another Death Star, but the iconography of The Force Awakens is somehow also similar to the original trilogy. It's been 30 or so years. We're in a completely new era, so why are they still using X-Wings and TIE Fighters? And more importantly, how the hell did the New Republic allow the First Order to even come to power? Are they stupid? Why are we just doing the Empire versus Rebellion again? It doesn't make any sense lore-wise, and it's also entirely creatively bankrupt. And this also hurts the original trilogy characters as well, but let's talk about the new main characters first. Rey is a fine protagonist. She has some personality, she has chemistry with the other characters, but her story is kinda messy. She has this arc of moving on from the family that abandoned her, and she does this by joining the Resistance and realizing that she can use the Force. But it's just not that strong of a character arc, and it feels like it's not entirely important. Ben has a good character story in the first movie though. He becomes the rebel hero he pretended to be. Poe Dameron gets nothing here. He's just a cool pilot who blows stuff up, and that's it. But then there's of course the main villain, Kylo Ren. In this first film, he's a solid lead villain with a scary presence, cool design, and an awesome lightsaber. And he has a somewhat compelling villainous arc of delving further into the dark side. Him killing Han Solo isn't just for shock value, it's important for his character story. And speaking of Han Solo, I suppose it's time we talk about the original trilogy characters.
Look how they massacred my boy.
They really did a good job massacring almost all of them here, huh? Luke and Han are both deadbeats who ran away from their issues and their family, and neither character gets to make up for it. Han Solo tries to salvage things with Ben, but he dies in the process. And all of Han's character work from the original trilogy was completely wasted, because he reverted back to his old smuggler self. And Luke, we'll talk about Luke in The Last Jedi. Don't you worry. Princess Leia was made completely inept because she was presumably a high-ranking member of the New Republic who allowed the First Order to happen. R2-D2 was completely replaced by BB-8, and Chewie and C-3PO are fine, but it's hard to mess them up. While the writing of The Force Awakens can be pretty messy, on a technical level the film is solid. Visually, it looks very good. It still has a cinematic quality to it, unlike modern-day Star Wars stuff. The CGI and practical effects are all top-notch and help to bring this galaxy to life, and there are some fun action bits. The Ragnar attack scene is hilarious and features a really cool character. The fight at Maz Kanata's place has some cool moments, and of course,
Raider!
Also, that was like the worst map in Star Wars Battlefront 2, but whatever. And the whole final sequence at Starkiller Base is top notch. I know people dog on the sequel trilogy lightsaber fights, but I think the Kylo versus Finn fight was one of the better ones from this trilogy. Overall, The Force Awakens is a lesser evil from this trilogy, and it has some good things to offer. It's going in B tier.
He's just standing there, menacingly!
Rogue One, a Star Wars story. This is often considered to be the best film from the Disney age of Star Wars, and I think it definitely is. It's not perfect, but it's a more than good enough adventure. The best aspect about it has to be its bigger story. It's very much a Hope Corps story. A ragtag group of rebels risking everything to go and retrieve the Death Star plans to give the entire galaxy hope is an incredibly powerful story. This whole movie is about sacrifice, hope, and a group of oppressed people standing up to the most dangerous thing in the galaxy. And this story allows for a galaxy-wide adventure, with new locations, new kinds of aliens, some amazing action, and hit-or-miss main characters. So let's talk about the crew of Rogue One, and how I think that in some ways they are the weakest part about it. Jyn Erso is the strongest character of the lot. Her relationship with her father and Saw Gerrera is powerful, and she has a solid character story of becoming part of this cause, and becoming a part of something bigger than herself. And Felicity Jones's performance is incredibly moving here. Cassian Andor is another strong character. He doesn't have much of an arc per se, but he has a lot of depth to him, as a person who does unsavory things for the sake of the rebellion. And Diego Luna, once again, is solid. K2SO is pretty funny, and I think Alec Tudyk is hilarious in this role, but I can't say that I think Chirrut, Baze, or Bodhi are all that memorable. They lack the character depth that the other characters have, but I do think that all of them dying on Scarif to retrieve the Death Star plans does in some way make them special. It's a powerful ending, and one I feel like Disney wouldn't allow again. I mean, that one shot of Jyn and Cassian at the end is so bittersweet.
No! Come on! Why?
And speaking of characters, we have to talk about the main villain, Director Krennic. What a great villain. He's equal parts threatening and kind of hilarious. Krennic has this presence about him. He commands the room, even if other characters like Tarkin or Vader mock him. But he's also funny and kind of a diva. Ben Mendelsohn for sure created a larger-than-life character here. And his death is absolutely hilarious, with Tarkin sniping him with a Death Star laser from orbit. The action in the film is superb, the Jedi shootout is exciting, the battle on Scarif features intense ground assaults, and the single best space battle in the entire franchise. And there's, of course, this. Yeah, that Vader hallway fight is just, it's something. Rogue One is a very simple movie that's very enjoyable. Despite some character issues and those awful CG faces, it's a blast. So Rogue One is going in B tier.
I'm the trash man. I come out, I throw trash all over the ring.
Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi. This is maybe the most hated entry in the franchise, and for good reason. Nearly every single aspect of this script fails to achieve anything. After the rebellion escapes the First Order, and it's revealed that the First Order can track them through hyperspace, the film is segmented into 3 different stories that converge at the end. Poe's story, Finn's story, and Rey's story. And all of them are uniquely terrible. So let's break them down one by one, starting with Poe's story. Poe Dameron has a character arc of, I guess, learning to blindly follow orders, because with the First Order hot on their tail, Poe is desperately trying to find a way out of their predicament. But both Leia and Admiral Holdo are purposely keeping him in the dark of their plan, for absolutely no reason. Just because he's hot-headed and does what he thinks is right for the rebellion, they think they have to teach him a lesson to follow any order given and not think about it at all. The man even starts a mutiny and almost ruins their plan, because they for some unknown reason thought it was a good idea to not tell him what was happening. And the whole thing of Holdo wanting to keep hope alive is so stupid. You don't keep hope alive by not revealing your plan. It's a baffling character story and aggravatingly idiotic. And it results in Poe sending Finn on a mission that is completely pointless. So let's talk about Finn's story.
Let's go gambling! Aw, dang it. Aw, dang it.
Finn's story is the most obviously terrible aspect of The Last Jedi. The Canto Bight stuff with them freeing the animals and tearing up the town completely halts the story and hurts the pacing. None of this is important for the story. It's a completely pointless side quest. And once Finn and Rose recruit DJ to go aboard the First Order ship, they're immediately betrayed, making their mission and their story also kinda pointless. I guess you could argue that DJ represents the idea that fence-sitters and people who don't choose sides are bad, but did you really need to say that? I feel like that's something we already know. And the character journeys for Finn and Rose are brutally awful. Finn quite literally rehashes the same character story from The Force Awakens. There is nothing new here at all. And Rose has an arc of learning that we don't win by killing who we hate, but by saving what we love.
What is this bitch tripping about?
I genuinely feel bad for Kelly Marie Tran. This single scene kinda hurt her entire career. But now it's time to talk about Rey's storyline. That affects her, Kylo Ren, and Luke Skywalker. Where Poe and Finn's storylines were just awful, this storyline craps on years of lore in the plot threads of the lead characters of this new trilogy. Rey's story is an extension of her story from The Force Awakens. She's still trying to find a place of belonging in the galaxy, and she looks for it with Ben Solo by trying to redeem him. I don't think it makes sense at all for Rey to try and bring him back to the light, since she literally just saw him turn Han Solo, the person she imprinted on, into a kebab. And while Kylo Ren's story about moving on from his past, trying to escape his grief over killing his father, and killing Snoke and trying to take over the First Order could be a compelling villain story, it's ruined by the linchpin of his story, the origin of his turn to the dark side. Luke Skywalker almost killing his nephew isn't anything other than complete and total character assassination. I understand that in Return of the Jedi, Luke was conflicted over whether he was going to kill Vader or not, but he realized that killing him was the wrong thing to do, and so that character development should translate to here, but no, it doesn't. Luke is responsible for the destruction of the galaxy because the writer said so, and Luke could have had a solid story of redemption and learning to fail, but he failed at something that he shouldn't even fail at, so his whole arc rings hollow, and him showing up at the end just to die like a fart in the wind is completely disappointing. The script of The Last Jedi is an unmitigated disaster. At least the movie looks good. It actually looks really good, just all around. Everything about the visuals is top tier, but that can't save this awful story. I'm putting The Last Jedi in D tier. Solo, a Star Wars story. This is an odd Star Wars film that seems pretty forgotten by most of the fans at this point. It's not awful, it's not good, it's somewhere in between. The cast is for sure a topic of discussion. Some people really dislike Alden Ehrenreich as Han Solo, but I think he did a solid job. He was able to capture some of Harrison Ford's mannerisms, while also making this young version of Han his own. I mean, he's so good, I think they should bring him back for this current post-Return of the Jedi stuff Star Wars is doing. I don't think Donald Glover is that good though. That might be a hot take, but I just don't see Billy D. Williams in his performance at all. That's probably not his fault though. I don't think any human could capture that pure charisma again. And the rest of the cast is solid with Woody Harrelson, Emilia Clarke, and even Jonas Suotamo as Chewbacca. But what is the worst part of Solo is the constant oohs and ahs it does. And what I mean by that is that it answers a bunch of questions that no one asked.
Solo. Oh, that's why they call it that.
We don't need to know where Han got his name, or where he got his blaster, or even the circumstances around how he won the Millennium Falcon from Lando. It just reeks of desperation, where the filmmakers are saying, hey, you remember the thing you liked? You liked the Falcon? You liked the Lando disguise? You like Darth Maul? Please like our movie and the other things that you like. We don't need every detail of a character's life explored. And that's sadly what this film decided to do with Han Solo. It just kind of makes the whole experience feel somewhat unnecessary. But outside of those things, I think the overall plot is solid. Han and Chewie having to do this heist to get out of trouble is a perfect Han Solo story, and it lends itself to many fun sequences. But sadly, the story is bogged down by different character journeys that don't feel completely fleshed out. Han has this arc of becoming the hardened smuggler we all know him as in A New Hope. That story beat didn't get the proper setup or payoff it should have. And they tried to give Kira a story of, I guess, choosing Han over herself, which doesn't really make sense because that's what she did at the beginning of the movie and at the end. It's not really a character arc, that's That's the same, nothing happened. But I think it's time to talk about who I consider to be the worst character in all of Disney Star Wars. L3, I don't care to say the rest. Why is there clanker propaganda in my Han Solo film? Every 5 seconds, this thing is like, droid rights, revolution, blah blah blah. Seriously, whoever programmed that droid to say that is just the worst. But at least we got to watch it die. While Solo struggles with its script, it somehow manages to be endlessly entertaining. So many of these sequences are just flat out fun and well done. The Chewie vs. Han fight in the mud and the train heist are both exceptional, but it's really the Kessel Run that is truly breathtaking and the defining scene of this film. Overall, Solo: A Star Wars Story is kinda forgettable, kinda poorly done, but also kinda good too. It's gonna have to go in C tier.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Star Wars Resistance. What was supposed to be the Clone Wars or Rebels of the sequel era, Star Wars Resistance is nothing like those two shows, because it is complete and utter trash. In full transparency, I did not fully rewatch this show this time. I have seen it all the way through like 5 or so years ago, but I really struggled to get through the show this time. So much so that I had to call it quits. This series is mind-numbingly boring. It's completely void of interesting characters or compelling stories. Everything we loved about the Clone Wars and Rebels is completely absent from Resistance. Also, this time period simply doesn't make for interesting stories. Because the films do such a poor job at establishing any greater lore surrounding the prequel time period, any stories taking place around that is gonna feel somewhat pointless. The show does a solid enough job at tying itself to the sequel movies, by occasionally including characters like BB-8, Poe Dameron and Captain Phasma. Also including Starkiller Base destroying Hosnian Prime was a cool way to connect the show to the films, but this whole era struggles to feel connected to the rest of the Star Wars universe. So because the sequels feel like an offshoot to the originals, Resistance feels like an offshoot of an offshoot. Also, the animation is completely buns. The character design is awful. The environments and overall visual look is just kinda gross. Also, there's not a single memorable character from this entire series. These are the most milquetoast, bland, nothing burger characters in the whole damn galaxy. I really have no desire to ever talk about the show again. It has to go in F tier. It's so bad.
You said you were wearing protection!
I was wearing my armor!
The Mandalorian, the show that saved Star Wars for like a year. Yeah, it's no secret that the last season of the show kind of ruined its entire legacy. So much so that people have begun switching up on the first 2 seasons. So let's go ahead and break it down season by season. The first season is generally very good. It has a clear story of Din Djarin trying to keep this child safe. As a character, he makes complete sense. He was a foundling who was brought up by Mandalorians, so he wants to do the same for this kid who has no one. And this story allowed for many fun adventures that we saw in season 1, like the prison escape or the big climax on Navarro. Mando and Grogu becoming a clan of 2 was a solid story arc for the first season, which perfectly translated into season 2. In season 2, it became his mission to deliver Grogu to a Jedi. And while overall I think these episodes weren't quite as strong as the ones from the first season, the overarching narrative was still strong, but this season was hurt by its dangling keys. They just kept bringing back characters we all knew, and it kind of felt unnecessary. Luke Skywalker makes sense to be here, because the whole point of the season was to deliver Grogu to a Jedi, and he's the last one. But including Ahsoka, Boba Fett, and especially Bo-Katan was just unnecessary, and it makes no sense for Bo-Katan to look like this. She should be like 60 at this point.
You're 61 years old?
Yes, sir.
What's your secret?
Carrots. Sometimes I grind them up into juice or just eat them raw. Or insert them anally.
But while I think season 1 was like an A tier show, and season 2 was like a B tier show, season 3 is actually bad. It's easily a D tier season. Grogu instantly coming back to Mando completely undermines the previous seasons of this show. And it really does seem like they did that for the sake of marketing. Because Grogu and Mando don't have an interesting story this season at all. I guess Din lets Grogu be a little independent. I guess that's the story. I mean, in the previous season, we saw him forsake his lifelong beliefs to save the person he deeply cares about, but yeah, no, this is just as good. And season 3's story about rebuilding Mandalore feels so mangled, because the story isn't even about the main characters. They gave this plotline to Bo-Katan for some reason. She has always been a completely terrible Star Wars character. In the Clone Wars, she was a member of the terrorist group who wanted to kill her sister, and then she got mad when they killed her sister. In Rebels, she was a complete failure who gets handed the Darksaber, and the same thing happens again in this show. Din Djarin won the Darksaber from Moff Gideon, and it means nothing here. He loses it to this nothing burger robot guy, but Bo-Katan saves him, so now she gets to lead Mandalore for whatever reason. It's a baffling story. Why even have him beat Moff Gideon and get the Darksaber if it means nothing? Oh, because you wanted to have the Mandalorian holding the Darksaber on the poster. That's quite literally the only reason why they did this. Season 3 has a rough story and horrible character work. There's some cool action at times, sure, but it doesn't redeem anything. Overall, The Mandalorian is gonna have to go in C tier. The final season really does drag it down that much. Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. Yeah, this movie is indefensibly terrible, and there's really no way of getting around it. I think the most memorable part about it and the entire trilogy is the lack of a continued story. Each entry in the series is a course correction of some kind. Audiences didn't like the prequels, so they made Episode 7. People had issues with 7, so they made 8. And people absolutely hated 8, so they made 9. And you feel it the most in Episode 9, because it completely tramples on story beats from the previous film in clunky, unpolished ways. Like Rey's story and Ben's story, who we'll talk about in a second, but the worst offender is the inclusion of Emperor Palpatine.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
Oh boy, where do I even begin? Let's first talk about it as it pertains to the sequel trilogy. Deleting Snoke and moving away Kylo to make Palpatine the main villain of the trilogy was an awful mistake. Additionally, introducing the Final Order and the super duper Star Destroyers with the Death Star cannons out of nowhere is a baffling writing choice. It completely cuts the legs off the story and derails the villains the movies are building to. Also, now a bunch of Disney Plus shows have to bend over backwards to explain how Palpatine's return makes any sense. And then there's the greater lore implications. Palpatine returning pretty much means that Anakin failed and he's not actually the chosen one. They literally undid the actual story of Star Wars. The issue of doing stories after Return of the Jedi is that you can't have stories that include the Sith or the dark side, because then you ruin the whole point of the story. And that's exactly what The Rise of Skywalker and the entire sequel trilogy did. No! But now it's time to talk about the main characters and their stories, because surely they can't be that bad. They're that bad. Finn was at one point an important character to this franchise, but now he's just a guy who screams Rey a lot and has something important to tell her, but never does. What is it that he has to tell her? Does he have the Force? Does he love her? Does he secretly love Chewbacca? We can only speculate. Poe has a story of, I guess, becoming a stronger leader, but the movie can't be bothered to properly do that story. Kylo Ren has a super rushed redemption story. The previous 2 movies are about him delving further into the dark side, but that doesn't matter. His dead mom sent a vision of Han Solo to forgive him for killing him, so whatever, it's all good. This is an unearned redemption story. I will say though, Driver and Ford's performances here are almost good enough to make the scene good. Almost. And then there's Rey, who has a story of choosing to be a hero despite her evil lineage. Her being a Palpatine really did come out of nowhere, and it's odd that it's a huge focus of this film, given that in the last one her parents did not matter at all. Her choosing to be a Jedi over a Sith seems redundant. Like, of course she's not gonna choose to be evil. She has no reason to do that. And her becoming Rey Skywalker at the end feels incredibly unearned. The Rise of Skywalker is different from The Last Jedi though, in that it doesn't look all that good. The movie is very blue. Very blue. Also, including Carrie Fisher posthumously was not the right call. Her scenes are very awkward and clunky since they had to warp her lines into the scenes, and it just doesn't work. Also, this has the worst lightsaber fight of the entire series. The Rise of Skywalker, it has to go in F tier.
Just like the simulation.
The Bad Batch. This is a good Star Wars show. It's not spectacular, it's not terrible, it's right in the middle. I think in a lot of ways, it feels kind of unoriginal when compared to other recent Star Wars shows. It of course has a lot of similarities to the Clone Wars, since it's a direct follow-up to it, but it also feels similar to The Mandalorian, where you have the hardened warrior characters fall into a fatherly role to a young child who needs it. But even with its similarities, The Bad Batch does carry its own themes across the 3 seasons, and those themes of learning when to stop fighting are really powerful. For the main characters of Hunter, Wrecker, Tech, Crosshair, not so much Echo, they started the best of the best, the top soldiers in the Republic. Fighting is all they knew, but over the course of the series, they have to come to terms with the fact that they can't fight forever, and their strengths and their skills are getting worse and worse as time goes by, and by the end of the show, they're either old, injured, missing a hand, or dead. Rest in peace to Tech, by the way. I know we all miss our Star Wars autistic king. But that ending scene of Hunter saying goodbye to Omega as she goes to fight with the rebellion is a great representation of the central themes to the show. The Bad Batch does feel a little too long, especially in the second season. It feels like they ran out of original ideas and there was just a lot of filler. I felt the filler more in this show than with the Clone Wars or Rebels. but there's still some fun action, cameos from fan favorites like Kanan, Rex, and Ventress, and the clones are some of my favorite characters in Star Wars. So seeing the story of how the Empire moved on from them and began the Stormtrooper project made for a very entertaining series. Yeah, I don't have much to say about the Bad Batch, it's just solid, so I'm gonna put it in B tier. The Book of Boba Fett. This is one of the worst projects we're going to talk about in this video. It's not technically the worst thing we've covered, but it's by far the most disappointing. Ever since I was a kid, Boba Fett was one of my favorite Star Wars characters, and I always wanted a movie or maybe even a show based around him, and I'm still waiting for that, because while Boba Fett is technically the main character, it feels like the show doesn't want to focus on him with how many characters it shoves down our throats. I mean, in his own show, Boba Fett has to share the screen time with Din Djarin, Grogu, Black Krrsantan, Cobb Vanth, Luke Skywalker, Ahsoka Tano, Cad Bane, and any other character I missed. I seriously don't understand how Jon Favreau got bored writing Boba Fett halfway through and started writing new episodes of The Mandalorian. And these Mandalorian episodes are terrible. As I mentioned in my ranking for The Mandalorian, having Mando get Grogu back almost immediately is a completely terrible decision. Also because Star Wars now has to make sense with the sequel movies, Luke Skywalker was terribly written here too. He let Grogu go because of his attachments to Din, as if Luke himself doesn't have attachments to other people, but I've talked about Luke enough. Boba Fett's story is also lazily done. We get his full story from the Sarlacc pit to the modern day, and the flashbacks to when he was with the Sand People were decent. His tribe being wiped out by the Pikes is a strong enough motivation for him to want to rid Tatooine of crime and spice, but the constant flashbacks hurt the pacing, and the modern day storyline of fighting off the Pikes is kinda boring. Except for when Boba was riding the Rancor, that was kinda cool. Also, these cyborg people suck. Sophie Thatcher, why are you here? She's a really good actress, but she's awful here. And the overall look of these people and the spin move are just horrendous. Book of Boba Fett is a dumpster fire. It was the first sign that this new Disney Plus era Star Wars may not actually be that great, so it's gonna have to go in D tier.
Kenobi!
Obi-Wan Kenobi. Everyone has their favorite Star Wars project. For me, that's the Phantom Menace. And everyone has their least favorite Star Wars project. And for me, that's Obi-Wan Kenobi. From top to bottom, there's not a single redeeming aspect of Obi-Wan Kenobi. It's a poorly thought out dumpster fire of a Star Wars show that was created to sell the hollow remains of your childhood back to you. The story doesn't make sense in any regard. So Leia is captured and Bail Organa asks Obi-Wan to get her back. It doesn't make sense for Bail to do this because what if it's an Imperial trap? Uh-oh, it is an Imperial trap. And so that begs the question, if Vader and the Inquisitors know that Obi-Wan and Bail Organa are connected, why don't they just interrogate Bail to find out where Obi-Wan lives? That would be because the writers didn't think anything through with this series. And there's of course the ending to this show, where Vader and Ben have their big duel and this is just terrible. It's disgusting looking with those hideously bright lightsabers that fill each frame with harsh lighting. I seriously don't get why they decided to film lightsabers this way. It's awful. The choreography sucks, the editing is choppy, and why is there so much shaky cam for this? Was there really no budget for a tripod? Could you not at least stack some boxes and put like a camera on top of that? And there's of course the ending to the fight where Obi-Wan somehow defeats Vader and lets him go.
You what?
Obi-Wan letting Vader go makes no sense at all, because his whole thing in the original trilogy is training Luke to kill Vader because he failed to. Also doing this means that Obi-Wan is single-handedly responsible for every atrocity that Vader commits. Congratulations, Disney, you made one of the greatest heroes in all of cinema a villain. There's so much more to be said about this crappy show. It's visually ghastly. Reva is an awful side character. They took a movie and stretched it out into 6 episodes somehow. And there's all that cartoonish Scooby-Doo nonsense with Leia. Her chase and the scene of Obi-Wan hiding her in his coat are actually embarrassing. While I think it is cool that Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen returned to Star Wars, I can't ignore how mishandled this series is. It's going in F tier. This is the absolute bottom of Star Wars.
Terrorists win.
Andor. This is one of the few Star Wars shows I didn't watch while it was coming out, so I was super excited to finally watch it, given the fact that everyone and their mother was glazing it so much. I can confidently say that Andor more than lives up to the hype. I don't even know where to begin, because while the show seems small scale, it has an expansive story that goes across multiple years with tons of compelling characters and character stories. Cassian Andor has quickly become one of my favorite Star Wars characters from the Disney age. Each season presents him with a compelling and tragic character arc. The first season is how he joined the rebellion. He hated the Empire, but he was very much in for himself. He didn't want to join the war like his mother or his friends did. After being falsely sent to a work prison, seeing what the Empire did to Bix, and his mother's final speech speech, Cassian changed and joined Luthen's rebellion. And in season 2, he has this tragic story of going towards his destiny and becoming the messenger he was promised to be. A second season reframes his death in Rogue One to something much more devastating, because not only did the rebellion lose a great leader and soldier, but a young baby lost their father. And that final shot of Bix and the baby tears your heart out. Each and every other character is compelling in some way too. I can't possibly go into detail about all of them, but Mon Mothma, Val, Bix, and Luthen are some of the standouts. And because this huge cast is so well fleshed out, it makes their individual stories and the many character deaths that much more impactful. I haven't been this invested in tertiary Star Wars characters since the Clone Wars. In this story, and the villains who caused the story are also endlessly compelling. We see these evil bastards orchestrate some of the most evil deeds we've ever seen the Empire do, like the Gorman Massacre, where the Empire fired on their own men, blamed it on the Gormans, wiped them out, and mined the planet for calcite. Wow. A governing body infiltrating a protest to get the protesters to start acting violent. I wonder where the writers got that idea from.
Wait a minute!
The directing is consistently excellent, the dialogue is sharp and engaging, and also the action is phenomenal. Like, this is the very first ever good Star Wars fist fight. Overall, Andor really does live up to the hype, and it's top tier Star Wars content. I wish I could talk about it more, but it has to go in S tier.
I miss my wife tales.
Tales of the Jedi, Tales of the Empire, and Tales of the Underworld. We're just gonna knock all three of these out in one go. These are just okay. A lot of these stories are just kinda meh. Each show follows two main characters and gives them 3 shorts each. Count Dooku, Ahsoka Tano, Morgan Elsbeth, Barriss Offee, Asajj Ventress, and Cad Bane. And most of these really aren't worthwhile. The Ahsoka story is a nothing burger that did not need to be told. No one cares about Morgan Elsbeth, so why give her anything? The Barriss Offee short is terrible. Why does she have a redemption arc? As soon as Darth Vader saw her, he realistically would have killed her right on the spot, since it was directly her fault that Ahsoka left the Jedi Order. And the Asajj Ventress story is also a nothing burger. The only 2 shorts I think are worth anything are Count Dooku's and Cad Bane's. The animation for all the shorts is solid. They all have some level of entertainment value, but I'm not gonna pretend these are my favorite pieces of Star Wars media or anything. So I'll put Tales of the Jedi and Tales of the Underworld in C tier, and Tales of the Empire in D tier, because it's the only one without a decent story. Okay, before I get any comments, yes, Young Jedi Adventures should go here because technically, yes, it is a canon Star Wars show, but it's a show for literal babies, and I'm a 24-year-old man. Also, it's 22 hours long, and I don't have the time for that. So I will not be covering that today. Sorry to all the Young Jedi Adventures fans out there. All 2 of you.
Holy crap, I'm in Fortnite!
Ahsoka, a live-action series that is for some reason live-action. Yeah, the absolute worst part of this series is it being live-action. All the main characters were animated. It's following up story beats from another animated show, and yet for some reason, it's live-action. This show is like those memes of turning Peter Griffin into real life, and it's the most cursed evil thing you've ever seen.
Ah! Good God!
But it could at least be decent if they translated the animated characters into live action well, but they didn't. I don't think it's any of these actors' fault. I think it was an unfortunate mixture of the screenplay and how they were directed. But I straight up do not see Ahsoka, Sabine, Hera, Ezra, or even Thrawn in this series at all. It feels like a really cool fan creation. There's just something uncanny happening here that I can't quite pinpoint. It makes all the scenes with these characters just seem off. Visually, the show is really bland. Her Rebels is colorful, bright, and has a unique visual flair to it. Ahsoka looks like a Verizon commercial. This story has potential, but this solid plot thread is let down by its less than stellar character stories. For some reason, Ahsoka's had the same character journey she has had 2 other times before. In the Clone Wars, she left the Order, had to reconcile with the fact that she left, and came back to fight. In Tales of the Jedi and Rebels, she had to reconcile with the fact that she left, and came back and fought for the rebellion. And in the Ahsoka show, she left after Ezra pulled her out of the world between worlds. She had to reconcile with the fact that she left, and she came back to fight Thrawn and choose to live and exist or whatever. Having her do this over and over and over again makes Ahsoka seem like the biggest fraud in the galaxy. I seriously do think she should have just died fighting Vader in Rebels. And the Ahsoka show should never have happened. It should have been just a new season of Rebels following Sabine, Hera, Zeb, and Chopper. Also, Zeb's not in the show. What the hell is that about?
Where are they?
Killing is making a choice.
Where are they?
The new characters of Baylan Skoll and Shin Hati are fine, I guess. I think both of these actors put in work, rest in peace to Ray Stevenson, but by the end of the show, they become afterthoughts and they're just not important. The Ahsoka show also suffers from the dangling key problem, with Hu Yang and Anakin in the Clone Wars reenactment, which by the way looks terrible. There should never be practical clone troopers. They should always be CGI because what the hell is this? I can't believe people saw this and said they want an entire live-action Clone Wars show. Overall, I did not care for the Ahsoka show. Sure, it has entertaining moments, and I'm always down to see more of the Rebels crew, but this show does have all the worst attributes of modern-day Star Wars. So the Ahsoka show is gonna have to go in D tier. Star Wars: The Acolyte. This was a show I haven't seen before making this video, but I knew it was super controversial. I just wasn't sure if the hate towards it was justified because of it being a terrible show, or if it was just like diverse, or because for some reason people throw a fit when movies and shows choose to be more diverse. But now that I have actually seen it, yeah, the hate is kinda justified. My goodness, this is just an awful show. I feel like I've been lobotomized. This whole series is mind-numbingly stupid and poorly done. I guess let's start with the biggest thing the show tried to do but failed miserably at. It tried to make the Jedi seem like bad guys. Now, the Jedi were always flawed. They were never perfect people or a perfect organization, but they were also never malicious or did any harm like the show would have you believe. They framed the 4 Jedi at the center of the story as evil for what they did to Osha, May, and their family, even though what they did was objectively right. Osha did not want to be a witch, so the Jedi offered her a way for her to go. But during the arguments, Osha, May's mom, did this. Oh god! What the? She turns into a demon ghost thing and seemingly tries to kill May, so of course Saul kills her. He'd be stupid not to. Then she says, oh, I was gonna let them leave, as if that makes any sense. Turning into a demon and giving the appearance of killing your children does not instill confidence in you being a good caregiver for these children. In that one single action is enough for Osha to have a terrible character arc of turning to the dark side, killing Soul, in this show presenting this chain of events like it's a good thing. Osha and May are so terribly written. They flip-flop on their beliefs and feelings constantly, they both act out of character many times, and the show doesn't make them distinct enough from one another. And there are plenty of other really bad things about the Acolyte, like the acting. Across the show, nearly every actor gives a terrible performance. Literally, the only saving grace is Lee Jong-jae as Master Soul. Like the one scene where Osha chokes him to death, he's selling it very well, and she is just staring at him with a blank face, with no emotion or expression. What's happening here? The action in the series is fine. People say this is on par with the prequel lightsaber fights, but no. There are some cool moments, sure, but no, it's not the same. You can find better lightsaber duels on YouTube. Like Ryan vs. Dorkman 2 is better than anything in this show could ever hope to be. Despite Jedi Master Soul being kind of a cool character, there is nothing redeeming about the Acolyte. The script just falls apart under any amount of scrutiny. I have to put the Acolyte in F tier. It's far, far worse than I thought it was going to be. Skeleton Crew. This is a Star Wars show I have heard almost nothing about, so because of that, I really didn't expect much. But I have to say, Skeleton Crew is one of the most surprising Star Wars shows I have ever seen. It's not just good, I'd say it's a great little show. And because I imagine not very many people have actually seen the series, I'm gonna do something different and I'm not gonna spoil things. The plot and the personal character stories are really wonderfully told in Skeleton Crew. This is very much a Goonies-inspired Star Wars adventure, where these kids accidentally fly themselves out into space, where they encounter pirates and all kinds of danger. This plot is the perfect vehicle for delivering character stories about proving bravery, coming to better accept a disability, or even finding a life worth living. Wim, Fern, Neil, and KB are all great kid characters, and these child actors do solid, nuanced work. Also, I found it kind of hilarious that whenever Wim screamed, he kind of sounded like the Sonic kid. On this galaxy-wide adventure, the kids meet Jad Nanawood, played by Jude Law. And I'm not going to delve into the twist or story about his character, but he's one of the most compelling characters in this Disney era of Star Wars. And Jude Law puts in one heck of a performance. He made Jad Nanawood an incredible character. Skeleton Crew is also just good fun, which is something a lot of more recent Star Wars projects fail to do. I know it sounds crazy that Star Wars of all things has become not fun, but projects like The Acolyte or Andor, even Ahsoka have become so self-serious whether they should be or not. So it feels like a breath of fresh air to have a show like Skeleton Crew that has so much whimsy and can be enjoyed by both adults and kids. Because remember, Star Wars was always for kids. My section on Skeleton Crew is going to be really short because I want as many people to go see it without spoilers as possible. I'm dead serious. this show has the goods. It's obviously not as compelling as something like Empire or Andor, but it's leaps and bounds better than some of the slop they've been chucking on Disney+. So to my own surprise, Skeleton Crew is going in A tier.
I have crippling depression.
Maul Shadow Lord. I had super high hopes for this series, but it honestly kind of let me down. I think the biggest issue with it is that Maul simply shouldn't be the main character of anything. He is so simplistic. He had the exact same motivation for his entire run as a character. He wants revenge on the people who wronged him, Darth Sidious, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and anyone else. And so he attempts to build armies and find apprentices and gain enough power to claim his revenge. It's a strong motivation for a side villain, but it doesn't make for a very interesting protagonist, because he does the exact same thing in the Clone Wars, in Rebels, and here in his own show. He's just a repetitive character. He even dies attempting to get his revenge. And while this could be perfectly fine if he just showed up every now and then, making a TV series about a guy whose main motivation is revenge, but he'll never even get close to getting his revenge, feels very pointless. I applaud Sam Witwer's vocal performance as Maul. He is truly fantastic, but Maul's story is just, it's kind of nothing. He really shouldn't have gotten his own show, but there are other characters.
Are you in good hands?
I think the side characters do a lot of the heavy lifting of this series. Devon is easily the most compelling character of the lot. The beginning of her fall to the dark side is compelling, in a perfect setup for her in the second season, and while the other characters don't really have strong story arcs, they're mostly likable. Brander Lawson is a decent cop character, and it's incredible that they got Wagner Mora in Star Wars. Master Daki was a solid enough character and his death scene was sad. Also, the animation for this show is absolutely stunning. I love the stylized painted look for it, and all the action scenes go insanely hard, especially the fight with Vader in the end. But all in all, this series goes to show that there could be too much of good things. So Maul Shadow Lord is gonna have to go in C tier. But before we move on to the newest Star Wars film in 7 years, I just want to say, we finally hit 100,000 subscribers, and now I have my eyes on a larger goal: 1 million subscribers. And once we reach that goal, I'll release a video where I cover every single Adam Sandler movie. So if you want to see that monstrosity, make sure you subscribe to the channel. But now, let's move on to
Stinky.
The Mandalorian and Grogu. This is okay. It's honestly not as bad as I thought it was going to be, but it's overall still not that great. Even if the filmmakers deny it, this is quite obviously the 4th season of The Mandalorian condensed down into a feature-length film. And you can feel that with the pacing. It's super clunky. It sometimes flows super fast, and then sometimes it completely tanks. It does just feel like multiple episodes squished together, which is kind of crazy. Why are there 2 different Star Wars films that are just episodes of a TV show smushed together into a feature film that both center around Rada the Hutt? This is some it's like poetry, it rhymes, if I had 2 nickels nonsense. But speaking of Rada the Hutt, let's talk about the characters and the stunning lack of any character writing. There is so little story here. Mando gets absolutely nothing. He is just here. Grogu kinda gets a plotline about growing up a bit, but it's not really developed in any meaningful way. But Rada the Hutt somehow has a compelling character arc of standing up against his family and becoming more than his father was. Do you know how hard it is to be your own man when your father is Jabba the Hutt is an actual quote from this movie, and it goes incredibly hard. Rada absolutely stole the show, and Jeremy Allen White gives a very solid vocal performance. I will say though, I didn't love the character enough to buy that Hot Toys Rada the Hutt figure or anything, but yeah, I'm gonna buy that Hot Toys Rada the Hutt. The rest of the acting is not that good though. Pedro Pascal has completely checked out. His vocal delivery is incredibly flat, and Sigourney Weaver was asleep at the wheel the whole time. Visually, I can't say the movie looks particularly good at all. Some moments look fine, but the overall directing and visual look was just kind of bland. It's by far the worst looking Star Wars film, but despite all my negatives, The Mandalorian and Grogu is similar to Solo, where it's still a fun time. A lot of these action sequences are a blast. There are some funny moments, and despite other people hating them, I love my glove shittos. And I love that they included Rada, Zeb, the chessboard creatures, and especially the goat. Overall, The Mandalorian and Grogu fell short of what I hoped it would be, even if it did have some entertaining moments. So I'm gonna have to put it in C tier. And that's my ranking for every single Star Wars movie and show. Thank you all so much for watching this video and for subscribing. It's only because you guys pushed this channel past 100,000 subscribers that this video could be made. And then I finally got my first play button. Thank you all so much. And I'm excited to begin that journey to 1 million subscribers. And if you enjoyed this really long video, why not go ahead and click on this video here? I'm sure it's one you'll enjoy.